What? Why are you shaking your head?
You're welcome.
It's every mock drafter's favorite time of the year, whether it's Dynasty rookie mocks or NFL.com mock drafts. It's time. It's really a time where post Senior Bowl, your favorite sleeper player all of a sudden becomes Amon-Ra St. Brown, depending on who you talk to and when. Quarterbacks that compared to the class priors that never would have scratched the top 5, top 6, all of a sudden are pushed into top 2 or top 3 conversations. Or maybe you don't like this class and you're just sitting back and laughing and trading all your picks for veterans. We don't know. What we do know today is that we have a phenomenal program here on Dynasty Points. We're going to talk about a mock draft that we did with our subscribers, some Devy specialists, if you would, other Dynasty addicts. Either way, we're going to get to the bottom of a couple of topics here on Dynasty Points. Joining me, as always, is Ryan Heath, Andy Buckler, Jacob, and Lucas still away on sabbaticals. Have no fear, though. The content is here. We're going to talk today on what's on the board. We are going to discuss our mock draft. Obviously, Travis Hunter being bait or a bargain. We'll talk about where he went on last night's mock draft. Most needed running back class. This class could really inject some life into dynasty running backs. And then, of course, mock draft madness. We're going to touch a little bit more on what we opened with here towards the end of the show. But post Senior Bowl, guys, this is just classic rookie hype cycle. This is just what it is. Ryan, you tweeted the other day, and I left a little comment on there for you where you talked about how people are going to come around on the class and draft picks are going to become more valuable. And I said, great, I'm going to sell all of those for studs as often as I can. And I really feel like even after that mock draft, I still am feeling that way. I feel like some of these guys are getting pushed up because they have to. But with that being said, Buck, Ryan, let's talk about the draft board. I need everyone to leave a comment of your least favorite pick that's going to be on this draft board. We're going to put it up here. Before we put it up here, going into it, did you have a strategy? Did you have a thought in mind? What did you expect to see? Did anything stand out to you? I'll start with Ryan.
Yeah, so just full disclosure, not a Devy guy whatsoever, really just sinking my teeth into this class. So right. Kind of my strategy. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Just also that I don't watch film. That's always important to remind people of. But yeah, regardless, my strategy for a mock draft this far out from the NFL draft, where we are going to completely change everything that the community thinks about all of these players as soon as we see where they're drafted and to what their landing spot is. My strategy is just, okay, let's focus on kind of the consensus expectation for roughly where all of these players are going to be drafted. Just very general. Is this a day one guy? Is this a round 2, round 3 type of guy? And so on, right? And then obviously just understanding kind of the value of different positions in Dynasty. Quarterbacks in Superflex Dynasty leagues are still very valuable. Always good to remember. Just general kind of things like that. Not so much like I'm going in really like wanting specific guys, especially from the 101, because it's pretty easy right there. And then after that, it's really just who falls.
Yeah, I got a few things to say on it, but I'll go to Buck first. When you went into this, did you have any idea of what to expect, or were you just kind of vibing it?
I was kind of just vibing. I didn't obviously I know I have a good idea of like the first 10 or so picks, but after that, I was just more so getting a feel of like what the second round would look like. Obviously it's super early. Like anything could change. There'll be guys that go at the 2-1 here that are 4th round picks come April, like in rookie drafts. But I don't know. I was really just trying to get a feel. I haven't like really dove deep on the class either. Like outside of, like some of the big prospects, which there's not many. I don't know like a lot of the, day two, like the heavy day two guys, or outside of the running backs. Like I'm not familiar with a lot of the receivers. I just kind of over the last week learned about a few that I've been looking at that look decent, like some like none of the obvious names. So I'm still like, I don't really have any idea with the class yet. So nothing really. I was just really trying to see like what it looks like. I had an idea, obviously, a little bit what the first round would look like, but even that kind of changed my mind a little. Looked a little different than I thought.
So I'll say that going into this, with the difference in the player pool, we obviously have people like us, like Buck, you and I. We are market watchers. We are board watchers, if you would, more than we are film watchers. Ryan, you're a data nerd. You're still shelving 2024, right? With the article, everything you learned. Like, we're still kind of putting an end to 2024. So it was good to get a mixture of player bases. Look, guys, I say this all the time. You need to mix up your draft pool. You need to mix up the players you're drafting against all the time. That way you get a different feel or different variety overall. You play with the same types of people. You draft with the same group of wide receiver boys. You can predict the first 4 rounds of every draft, if you know what I mean. So important to switch up your draft pool. That being said, I was interested to see the intense Devi guys, how they were going to attack. Now, I've had my issues with the Devi community in the past. If I have to hear much more about how Sam Howell's just not getting used correctly, I might walk myself into traffic. But obviously, there is an advantage to knowing these players at least a little bit more on the surface level. The thing that I want to start this off with really is that it's February, right? We got all of February, all of March, and into April to really dive in. I feel like if you are just planting your flag and you are making your statement now with the information we have today, that is the fastest way to put you on Old Takes Exposed, fantasy receipts, screenshots into Discord chats, etc. It's a real strong way to get you shoehorned into a take. Then some people feel like they have to defend it. Then they double down on it and they triple down on it, and they'll take it to their grave if they would, regardless of the information that comes out. So you got to be careful with these. That being said, let's get into the board. I'm putting it up here. Hopefully everyone can see it. For those listening and not on the YouTube channel, which you should go to youtube.com/FantasyPoints. Look us up. We're worth the follow, I promise. I think the first 3 picks were pretty standard with Genty, Sanders, and McMillan. I think that's pretty... I think the way it's going to go one way or the other, maybe Ward sometimes above Sanders. We'll see what happens. But none of that was surprising to me. I went McMillan at 3. We actually went 1, 2, 3. I think the 3 of us. Ryan, you led off. Buck was at 2, I believe, and I was at 3. So what was the first surprise for you guys? I know what it was for me. But what was the first surprise? And I'll start with Ryan.
Yeah, I think the first surprise for me was Omarion Hampton there at 104.
It does stand out a little bit.
Yeah, and it's not just that Hampton went at 104. It's how this kind of second tier of running backs was just spread out like over this entire first round and into the start of the second round. So my understanding is that most people would put Hampton, both the Ohio State guys, Henderson and Judkins, and Caleb Johnson, at least roughly kind of in a second tier together behind, obviously well behind Genty. But yeah, it was pretty surprising to me, at least in this draft, that from the 1-4 to the 2-1, or maybe Buck will cape up for Ollie Gordon here in a second to include him in the tier as well, that yeah, you could just get a relatively similar prospect in terms of how they're viewed overall. Like, I think if all of those guys have decently expected combines, and then it's just going to be whichever one goes to the best landing spot is who's going to be getting drafted first in the start of May, right? I don't feel comfortable saying like I super prefer one of those guys over the other. You can argue about archetype and who catches the most passes and that kind of thing, but yeah, I think if any of those four end up in like the people's chosen landing spot, then that's gonna be the guy that people argue for at 104. So yeah, I mean, I thought I got good value on Caleb Johnson at 201, but yeah, I'm interested to hear what you have to say there, Buck, as well, especially with you going Gordon right afterward.
Yeah, my surprise was really the same, but for the sake of having, a different one, I'll say Tyler Warren, at the 1-9. I think he should probably just be ahead of Henderson and Ibuka, unless Henderson gets first round draft capital, which I saw that rumored over the last couple weeks. We'll see if that holds true. But Ibuka, really good prospect, just kind of similar to Chris Olave. He stayed an extra year. That's what really pulls him down. But all his metrics are very good. But on the running backs, yeah. So with Gordon, it's tough with him because he was coming into the season as the RB1 possibly. He had a really rough, off season. He ran into some trouble in the off season, and then just had his worst season. But his sophomore season, his second season, I think he had a transfer. He had 1,700 yards, 20 touchdowns, and then he goes to the Senior Bowl and he's fat. He's really fat. He's fat as hell. He weighed 233.
That means he's a Buck favorite already.
Yeah, so
he's already fat.
He was already my favorite running back because he's a fat running back. But anyway, so his sophomore season, he had 1,700 yards, 1,732 yards, 21 touchdowns, and then just absolutely fell off. His junior season, 800 yards, 13 touchdowns, down to from 6.1 yards a carry to 4.6 yards per carry. He needed a Senior Bowl. Remind again, I don't mean to jump around. The Senior Bowl is not just for seniors anymore. He's not a senior, right? He's only a third-year player. They did change that, so not everyone's 26-year-old late declare at the Senior Bowl anymore. Denzel Mims just cooking everyone in the thing because he's 30 years old. That's not the same anymore. It is different now. So Ollie Gordon he turned heads. He was the best running back in Senior Bowl practices. He really needed it because his draft stock looked like it was falling into possibly day 3. But I think when you look at players like him, and we've seen the NFL do this where I can't even think of an example off the top of my head, but a player that had so much pedigree going into the season then has a bad season, they just still get picked in day 2. The NFL just still likes the player. They're still going to pick him regardless of the season. We see that all the time. JSN's a receiver. He went in the first round, but he didn't play. It's he's not going to get paid. He still did. Or he played 5 games. He got hurt. So with Gordon, I think the dude might just still be a day 2 pick. And all his other stuff, I mean, he was fat as hell, but if he can shed 10 pounds because obviously by combine, his 40 time was still really good. And this is still I really think this is a super forgotten about prospect because of the season he had. So I think at the second round, at the 2-2, especially in a class like this, I think it was, I thought it was a good pick. I definitely think as of right now we're sitting, I think he's somewhat a tier below the other running backs, but it just became to all the other dudes in that range. I'd rather take a shot on a guy like Ollie Gordon who, could jump up and be the 1-7 if he gets the right draft capital and is a running back, or take a guy like Matthew Golden, who's not a good prospect, but probably going to be a first round pick. I just rather take the running back. So that's how I kind of got to that pick.
Kind of reminds me a little bit of when the 2-2 was kind of looking like James Cook, who was the type of player that never really put it all together, still goes at decent draft capital and gets shot up the board. Right. I remember I loved James Cook at 2-2. Probably my most viewed clip of all time is me freaking out on this show, begging people to stop moving James Cook up boards from the 110 to the 1-6. And evidently he ended up going way up there. Cam Akers, remember, did the same kind of thing where he started off kind of in that early 2 and ended up vaulted into that mid-second simply on where he was drafted. So I think that's kind of what it's reminding me of. But if you look at the running backs taken at 2-1, 2-2 in previous years, we're getting in my opinion, a better running back in Gordon at 2-2 than we were getting with Benson at 2-2. Now we just have to hope James Conner's not in his way, I guess. Like it's going to be fruitful. And I mean, same with Neal at 2-6. I thought he was a steal there at the 2-6. That was a great pick. I really like him. I think Trey Harris at 2-4 is going to be a steal pick. Now, I picked Fannin at the 2-3. And after I did that, Ryan, was when you kind of were asking me about that clip we had with Jacob discussing the Y tight end kind of dying. And then I got really sad because obviously that's what he projects as of now. So it might be a trap. I've heard that this tight end class is going to turn heads and it's going to be, a draft and not worry about it type situation. Half of these tight ends are going to fail. Really, like the hit rate for tight ends is so astronomically low. We're really at a draft class, in my opinion, where you're kind of picking the best, most complete profile because blocking has to count now. It has to get on the field. Not every team is running 2 tight end constantly. That's what Jacob mentioned. I'll post that clip in the description. It's worth watching.
Yeah, just to jump in here for a second, you're absolutely right just about tight ends in general being very difficult to project. It doesn't seem like it because we just had Brock Bowers, but even if you just look at first round tight ends over the last 5 to 10 years, there aren't actually that many hits there. Laporta was a second rounder, right? TJ Hawkinson, I guess, is probably the best first round NFL tight end after Bowers. And he really took a couple years and had to get traded to Minnesota to really pop off. So yeah, I like Thomas, you always say that only God can scout quarterbacks, but I wonder if it's honestly similar at tight end, at least with how the NFL seems to evaluate them and draft them in the first round so often. They're just not getting what we expect.
Yeah, I agree. These picks are going to be risky. Drafting a tight end is risky anyway. Arroyo did get a lot of steam. I saw that in our comment section in the chat. I think that was from TD. Brett mentioned that he doesn't know what Loveland does better than Arroyo on his podcast with Theo Greminger. That's on the Fantasy Points Now feed. I'm an absolute company man today, hammering these out.
I was about to bring that up, that Brett take up too, Thomas. So we had that cornered regardless. Yeah,
it's an interesting take, but I feel like it's just a Senior Bowl take. Like, I feel like it's because he got to be seen. Loveland didn't really. Like, he didn't get to be seen by the same amount of people. He didn't get the same hype. A lot of these guys are getting cooked. These DBs are getting cooked in situations they're almost meant to fail in. Arroyo wasn't doing the TikTok routes, which thankfully he was not. Some of these releases are just leave them on TikTok, bro. I can't do that. But beyond all of that being said, I think the most surprising pick to me was Johnson at 2-1. Loveland above Johnson at 2-1 to me is a little surprising. Just by knowing everything we know about tight ends like we just talked about, I think I would just rather prioritize that running back. Now, I put him in Pittsburgh, if you remember, when we initially talked to Brett on the tier show at the time. I still think he could be really good there. Everything we're talking about with this mock draft, Royals in the 3rd, Milrow in the 3rd, Scatabo in the 3rd, Restrepo, Dart even in the 2nd, Sampson in the 2nd. I'm looking at all these players and I'm looking at how they're fitting. And I think landing spot is going to change this board the most. I think this is a draft where we look at the board. A lot of these guys are going to move. Isaiah Bond, I saw him mocked in the 1st round. That's going to move him from the 2-7. It just is. 2-7 in this mock draft. He goes in the first round. He's moving ahead of other players quickly, especially with his speed profile. So I think landing spot, when I look at the board, and I'll ask the final question on this before we move on to Travis Hunter. What do you think is going to make the biggest difference on the board? Because for me, it's landing spot. But some people don't put landing spot into the same bucket as maybe athletic testing or just profiles in general. I think a lot of these guys, I'm going to be almost not ignoring the profile, I guess. But for landing spot, but I think landing spot's going to change my mind on a lot of these guys. It's going to be the deal breaker on a lot of these players. Is there something else you see on here, Buck, that's going to make the biggest shift for you because obviously this rookie mock draft is going to look nothing like this in a month. It's not going to be close. What do you think the biggest factor is going to be?
Yeah, I think landing spot. I think draft capital for me, like any of the running backs. Like I know it seems like it's starting to switch a little. Like round 4 is starting to matter more for running backs. I still want my running back to be a day 2 pick. Like I know we are starting to have a little bit like round 4 is kind of the new day 2, but I still would prefer them to be on day 2. And definitely draft capital. And I want Tez Johnson to like eat a lot before the combine.
And stop running TikTok routes.
So he could not be 160 because he's a player I like a lot. That's Bo Nick's brother. So I really like for him to at least could we put on 10 pounds? Because he's lighter than Smitty right now.
Yeah, that's scary. But size, man, I don't know. I don't know if it matters as much. Ryan,
I think if you're 165, it matters. My rule is I do think we have tended to overfixate on size a little bit, especially as the NFL is kind of changing. The average defender is getting smaller and faster. We've seen smaller and faster players succeeding on offense more as well recently. But I think my cutoff is if you're at the wide receiver position and you're lighter than Ryan Heath, if you're sub like 180, that's where I start to get a little concerned. If you're bigger than me, then I believe it. All power to you. I bet you can go succeed on an NFL football field. But yeah, my size or skinnier, probably not. That's going to be a problem, I think.
That's fair. I don't know, dude. It's this draft is already shaping up to be weird. We're going to talk about a big part of that next up here. But early on, seeing a running back heavy, tight end heavy draft, it just looks weird. It looks off-putting. The colors look off-putting when you line them up on Sleeper with this draft. I'm used to it being all blue and red. But now we got a lot of green and yellow here. It's off-putting for me. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk Travis Hunter, the player that I think is probably going to spark the most conversation in the comments, but we should talk about it because it's going to be an off-season talking point all year. You're going to want to sit tight. It's going to be good. So let's talk Mr. Hunter. I don't know if there's a player where he goes is going to matter more. So Lance Zierlein had him at the 3rd pick going to the Giants, saying that he can help them take the ball away and play more corner than wide receiver. And then you've got Daniel Jeremiah having him as the 2nd pick going to Cleveland to play wide receiver and kind of moonlight as a corner. I don't love Cleveland as a landing spot. I'll tell you that right now. That organization and using players correctly, it's in a hellscape. Good wide receiver competition, target competition if you include Njoku. Tough. That's a tough fantasy click. It is. Even if they come up and announce him as a wide receiver, it's a little tougher. It is. And then you get the Giants where he gets to, if he plays more wide receiver than people think,
They're taking a quarterback. They
Just
got two dudes on the hot seat that they're taking a quarterback.
Oh,
I
they're gonna
saw
sign-
that by Lance Sterling, and I'm not gonna lie, it annoyed me. The Giants are taking a quarterback. They're the
gonna-
most pathetic, most desperate team in the league. They're taking a quarterback.
they're gonna sign Jameis Winston, bro. But,
Yeah,
but either
that-
way, those two spots at wide receiver annoy me just because there's obviously more. There's more target comp, right? You're gonna have Neighbors. Wandale's not great, as but he got his targets. It's still something to compete with. I really don't love those two spots.
Yeah. And so the worst thing with these two spots is that if you're Travis Hunter and you're going at the second or the third overall pick, you're displacing a quarterback from your own team as well. That's kind of a problem. Who's playing quarterback in Cleveland? Who's like, yeah, I just, could it happen? Absolutely. Would it be catastrophic? Yeah, probably. Like, I don't know. It's hard to get like upset about a guy we hope is a fantasy skill position player going in the top 3 of the draft. But yeah, this is about as bad as it would get for under that kind of umbrella of outcomes.
Yeah, it's gonna be tough. And I love this comment from old Timothy here. Eagerly awaiting the betting odds for how Travis Hunter will be announced on draft night. My bet is on athlete. It's man, it's gonna be interesting, right? Let's talk about his spot here in this draft because our mate Father Whale, Devi player, Devi guy, very much a talent over everything player from our conversations but he and I were talking about Travis Hunter 106 because of course he saw the thumbnail. It was his pick. So he saw the thumbnail and he goes, yes, he absolutely was a steal at 106. And after talking for a little while back and forth, thumbnail for everyone who might have missed it, it's tough for me because I know a lot of my drafts anyway are post NFL draft. I feel like he's going to be the reason they get pushed. Rookie drafts gets pushed as far into training camps and preseason as possible because everyone's going to want to know. I think if we get like he's playing 75% of the snaps at wide receiver and 25% of the snaps at corner, I think he's 104. I don't think he passes Tet because he'd have to be a 100% wide receiver to me to do that, depending on everything we just talked about with landing spot, draft capital. Like he profiles really good. Talent-wise, sure, maybe Hunter's the better receiver. I don't know that. I'm not a film guy. I'm not a talent evaluator, so I don't know. But for me, I know that I like my receivers to be 100% of the routes guy or 100% of the snaps on offense guy, not a 75 or less type guy. I know that for sure. So maybe I'm talking on my ass. I don't know. Is he a bargain at 106? I think he can be. I think at 106, if I'm going to make a risk it for the biscuit type pick, he's the pick, I guess. If you're going to do it, I can't. But I think Travis Hunter is going to be the reason rookie drafts get pushed back. Big time. I don't have a read on him. I don't. I've heard. I have a list here. I've compiled a list that I have over here of things that through talking to different fantasy analysts, football folks that I trust, I won't call them sources because they're not, but just people in the various communities that I've gotten to talk to about this over the last couple of days. All right, this is the type of things that I've had brought up as a concern. Competition, route running, attitude, playing both ways. It's never happened. Unicorn situation. Not total unicorn, but in the NFL, it kind of is to the level that people are talking about. Size, lying about size apparently is the thing some people are worried about. Just as some examples. And not just once. A lot of these came up multiple times. That's why I'm mentioning them now. It's interesting to me. It is. Do you have a read here, Ryan? Because I'm all up in the air on whether Travis Hunter is bait or a bargain. If you draft Travis Hunter at 106 and he goes to a team like, let's say if it is the Giants, much to Bucks chagrin here. He's shaking his head. He's not even entertaining it. They're taking Milrow, Giants QB1. They're locking it in. Daniel Jones 2.0, all that. If they go to a team that makes him a corner and you drafted this dude at 106 and you don't play an IDP, I don't know, dude. I think I would set my team on fire.
Yeah, I mean, that's what you're doing is you're setting the draft pick on fire potentially. So here's how I am looking at Hunter right now. I think that if you are fully bought in on Hunter as an elite wide receiver prospect, and you think he's clearly by far and away the best receiver in this class, assuming that he plays receiver, then sure, I think it's understandable to take him around the 106. My issue is that I'm not fully bought into that. So your issue with Travis Hunter, as we've kind of been working our way towards, is he has to hit kind of a parlay that most receivers do not have to hit. He, number one, has to be close to a full-time receiver in the NFL. We generally know that about every other receiver that we're drafting, or at least that's the plan for all of them. We don't know if that's the plan for Travis Hunter. That's already a big chunk of probability that you're taking out of him as a hit. Does the team that drafts him even want to use him on offense, right? Personally, I think once we hear the post-draft press conference, I will be okay with taking a stand on that and kind of updating how I feel there. Well, I'll try not to get on the preseason usage roller coaster. I think honestly teams tend to tell the truth with how they plan to use players right after the draft, or at least how they intend to. So that's what I'm really going to be zeroing in on. But to get back to what I was saying, the second part of that parlay, is he a receiver? Is he any good? Is the second part of that parlay. That's usually the only thing that we need to care about with other wide receivers. With Hunter, it's the second part. We don't even know if we're gonna get to, is he any good? But we can talk about, is he any good? And my opinion on that is I think he's good. I don't think anything about his profile screams elite wide receiver to me. Even just comparing some of his numbers to Ted McMillan or to Trey Harris, who is older, I understand, so not entirely a fair comparison, but he doesn't really jump off the page to me from an analytical perspective, doesn't really jump off the page to me, or I guess the film to me from a film perspective. There's nothing that I really locked onto with Travis Hunter, aside from it obviously being very cool that he plays two ways. I appreciate that obviously as a fan, but there's nothing here that gets me so jacked up to draft Travis Hunter, even if I wasn't concerned about how much he would play wide receiver, right? In his best season, so this past year, 2.45 yards per out run. That ranks 17th among Power 5 wide receivers in his class this past season. Just for comparison, Tet is top 3. Trey Harris was first by a long shot over 5 yards per out run. What that guy was doing was insane this year. And also the screen usage is a little bit concerning to me with Travis Hunter. That yards per out run average goes down to about 2.3 if you just remove screens. That's not even an elite yards per out run in the NFL, right? And this is against college competition with one of the best QBs in the class throwing in the ball, who I should also say that he does seem to scream and yell at a lot from the limited film that I've watched, which is also a little concerning. Yeah. But yeah, with screens, yards per out run down to 2.3. 20% of his targets this past season came on screens, 22% of his receptions. That is a fairly high number. For comparison, Tet was at about 6%. Trey Harris, who I just keep using as an example, analytically was at about 10%. 20% of your production coming on screens in college it's not death knell stuff, but it's okay, this profile is not as great as it appears at first glance, right? That's always kind of something I like to quickly look at to get a feel for how. Obviously there are other things that can make college production fraudulent, but that's a very quick and easy thing to kind of check is how much of this is just coming on screens. And for Hunter, it was a decent amount of it. So yeah, I guess just to wrap it up, I am not sold on Hunter as the wide receiver 1 in this class, like in a vacuum whatsoever. And we aren't in a vacuum. We're in an area where it is legitimately in the range of outcomes that he doesn't play significant offensive snaps in his NFL career. So right now, pre-draft, where we really don't know, and honestly, where the consensus seemed to be that most teams would want him more as a corner, if at least when we were talking about this a month ago with Brett Whitefield. I like the second round is probably about where I like start having interest, like significant interest. But yeah, it's really tough for me to click that at 106 again before the NFL draft, before we even know what the team's plans are for him.
Yeah, it's tough, dude. I don't know. Buck?
Yeah, I agree. I think a lot of the stuff's kind of a moot point right now with him just before the draft because we don't know. I think we'll have a really good read. Like once he's picked, I really think we'll know what he is. I don't think we'll have to wait till training camp. Like I really think post-game presser, post-draft press conference, I think we'll have a really good idea. I honestly think if I knew he was 100% wide receiver, like I'd rank him as my wide receiver 1 in the class, pretty easily. I think with Ted McMillan, he's under 2.5 yards per run for his career. He's a good prospect, but he does have I don't want to call him fat again, but he's a fat ass receiver. He's not Drake London. And I was listening to Todd McShay, and you could take this for like for whatever it's worth. And he's pretty plugged in, obviously. He was saying that his read on Ted McMillan is like a lot of NFL teams kind of lower than what the mocks have him. That he was kind of shocked to see him like consistently in the top 6 because of what he's heard about him, that they don't like him as much. And now that could like mean nothing, right? In a month, who knows? But he was saying that he was like, when he consistently sees Ted McMillan in the top 5, top 6, that he's like legitimately shocked because he said that's a different tune than what he's hearing around the league. But with Hunter, I think you just got to wait. I think you just really got to wait. And if there is nothing about it, then I don't think you could pick him. At the 1-6, like it's pretty rich. And you might as well, like, there's really no reason. Like, if we don't know, there's really no reason to pick him over like a Abuka or any of the running backs, really. So I think he is the most polarizing player for sure. And I think he's a better corner than receiver, which speaks to how good, like how bad the wide receiver class is. I think he's the best wide receiver in the class, but I also think is a better corner. I think based on him, it would make more sense to just be a full-time receiver because of the money. Like this is the way the contracts work. So I kind of think he'll be a receiver and play, play packages maybe at DB. I will say, like, I'll sit on this live stream in April and drink pickle juice if he's a Giant. The Giants are drafting their quarterback at 3. It's a guarantee. I think there's just no shot. I'll drink a bottle of hot sauce if they draft Travis Hunter at 3. It's the worst kept secret in the league that the Giants are drafting somewhere or another, whether it's at 3 or they trade up. Like Shador Sanders is a New York Giant, and I would guarantee that. He also had Genty to the Jets in that at 7.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me though. No part of that shocked me.
His rationale was because Breece Hall never had 1,000 yards rushing. They missed that.
He had a short blog to do those in, but we're going to talk about mock drafts in the end. I will say, like, people are ruling out the Jet. I'm not. I'm not. I'm not. There are the rumors that they wanted to add Gibbs. There's then they went and added 2 more. Like, I'm not.
That was a different regime, though.
Also, why do you think Breece Hall
doesn't shock?
Why do you think Breece Hall is so desperate to play through all these injuries? Like that's what the reporting was towards the end of the season. Allegedly, he was playing through something the whole year, that there was like this mysterious injury all the way back in training camp as well that I assume he was playing through. Yeah, I think Breece Hall thinks that he's on the hot seat, and my assumption is that he got that impression from from the prior regime and from that being the opinion in NFL circles because he can't stay healthy or whatever, because that's how NFL circles seem to talk about players. Just like all the worst parts of fantasy Twitter. It's kind of crazy how that tends to line up.
Yep. No, I agree. I love Big Diaz here. Buckler can't do a mock draft because he won't know what to do in the second rounds because he's never going to draft in the second round anyway. Buck's already traded every single one of those second round picks. He's already got his fat ass running back, Josh Jacobs, in every league for all those seconds. We know it already. Timothy says Travis Hunter preseason usage is going to be weird. Accidentally giving him entire games at a single position. It's going to be infuriating. It's going to be infuriating. I like Whale here. He goes to New England. It's a steal. If there's a team in the first round that's going to use them both ways and do it effectively, yeah, I believe it would be a team like New England.
I don't know about effectively, but
I think you would.
We'll try to use him both ways. Yes.
Vrabel is a guy that looks at who is my best player.
Mm-hmm.
I want to get my best player the ball. Hey, offensive coordinator, my best, get him the ball. And they that's his
AJ Brown disagrees.
He was pissed that AJ Brown got traded because he couldn't get his best player the ball. And a lot of people would argue at that time that Derrick Henry was their best player.
Yeah. To be fair, AJ Brown was pulling like 30% target shares on the tight end.
Yeah.
It was just that they never threw the goddamn ball.
Because they ran it a lot. Because Derrick Henry was, if you listen to Vrabel, in his opinion, his best player. So regardless if we like receivers or not, Derrick Henry going for, 2K? All that stuff at the time? I mean, regardless. Yeah, receiver boy. I just think a team that drafts Hunter post-draft, he's going to say he's a phenomenal athlete, no further questions. I feel like that's the vibe I get when talking about him. He's going to be a polarizing player. To answer the question, bait or bargain, right now, I'll say bait. But we don't do rookie drafts in February. And if you are, you're sick. You're truly sick. I get early rookie drafts. I do a couple every year. Hopefully not this year, because I got to tell you, I'm trading all those picks if I am, because brother, I need the board, man. I'm the first one to tell you I'm not a rookie scout. I need the board, and as of now, actually, speaking of the board, I don't know why I didn't think of this, guys, but where the 106 is getting drafted right now, in the 6th round.
Yeah, it's like a 6th round pick.
He's around DJ Moore, Addison, Olave Worthy, Ken Walker, Hawkinson. That's still expensive for a potential 60% route share receiver.
Those are all guys that, that's exactly what I was going to say. Those are all guys that play nearly every snap on offense at the actual offensive position.
Big Diaz. Dion said in presser, whoever drafts him needs to accept he is going to play both ways. I'm not paying a first for that. I'll pay on the way up. Yeah, Dion doesn't get a say in what happens with Travis Hunter at the next level. He's going to bat for his guy. I don't listen to that stuff.
I will say though, I do. It might be my bad. It might be reiterating a point though. I really think he's gonna try to play both ways though.
I think he will too.
So I think he won't. I know. I think he's definitely pushing for that though. I think we'll hear from whatever team drafts him, but I don't think he's just gonna come out and be in at pro day like I'm a receiver or I'm a corner. I think he's really gonna try to do both.
Oh, I agree. I think he's gonna try, and then I think the team's gonna realize that having a guy play 130 snaps on both sides, this isn't sustainable at the NFL level.
Yeah, I don't think there's a shot he could play both the whole game. He'd have to find whatever he likes more and pick a primary position and then play a package, whichever. Right. It's probably easier to do that at receiver.
That's why it's risky.
Exactly.
That's why it's because you can. I don't know. I imagine it's easier to have a package. I feel like now look, I'm not playing at this level, but when I played ball, I played slot corner and I played receiver and running. I had to be in a rhythm at corner, but they could just put me in and say, you got 3 plays on offense. This is what they are. You know, it worked for me, but I'm not Travis Hunter, superhuman athlete at that insane level. But corner, I feel like, is a position of rhythm. You know what I mean? Like receiver, I don't know. I've seen offensive tackles go out there and get some reps. I don't know. He's weird. Chat is saying bait a little bit here. Timothy said, yeah, people forget about Marcus Jones. Yeah, Marcus Jones did a little bit. He had some splash plays on offense as well and corner, but not fantasy. We're talking about what we have to keep in mind is it's for fantasy. And what do we say all the time? Volume is king. Volume is king. And he's got, like Ryan, your point, where you talked about I'm losing it now. Oh, you talked about he has to achieve something that a lot of these receivers already have built in. Look at those players drafted near him, man. Worthy, Moore, Addison. I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it for a potential sub 75% snap share guy. I don't know. I can't. Call me a coward. I don't know. I have no idea.
We need Jacksonville. Christian Kirk.
Yeah, he's an IDP. He's going to be an IDP god. I'll tell you.
I don't know though. When you, I will say when you compare him to Xavier Worthy and you say, okay, who's a real wide receiver that can do real wide receiver things, run real wide receiver routes. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I do take Travis Hunter over Xavier Worthy on that, but that just move on. That was just a bad shot. just move on.
You're just taking hot shots at Xavier Worthy for no Worthy.
That was in really poor taste, and I just didn't get like the comedic timing or the reaction I expected. So you can just move on.
I'm leaving that in the podcast. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about the running back draft class. Sit tight. I'm absolutely leaving that in.
I'm not saying you should cut it out. I'm just saying there was nothing else there. No one seemed interested in my Xavier Worthy shade.
It's because I've drafted a couple shares of Xavier Worthy this offseason there, Ryan. So I don't know. We'll see. Let's talk about the running back class because the average age of league-winning running backs, Ryan, you have at 25 years of age. We've talked about the aging running back pandemic in the NFL. Look at, I guess we could put Jacobs in that conversation now. I believe he's 20. Buck, you're the birthday guy. Is he turning 27?
He's a running back, so I don't know him as well. I know he's 26 right now.
Yeah. He's 26 right now. So he's not a receiver. You don't know his birthdays?
Nope.
Didn't send him a card. We've got obviously McCaffrey, Henry, Taylor.
Josh Jacobs' birthday is next week. He'll be 27.
My God. Mixon, Kamara, like Montgomery. A lot of aging backs here, Ryan. So let's talk about it.
Yeah. So when we say league winning and we put the word league winning on this graphic, people will ask what that means, and that's fair. So every season at the end of the fantasy season, I do this big article all about my biggest takeaways from the prior fantasy season. And when I say league winning in the context of that article, what I'm talking about is just the playoff rate that a player makes the playoffs in ESPN leagues. So if a player is on a playoff team in over 55% of ESPN leagues, I consider them a league-winning player. The average age of running backs in that category is 25 years old. These are like the big running back seasons that feel like they make a difference for you week after week, right? Saquon Barkley was a league-winning running back this year. Derrick Henry, Alvin Kamara, Joe Mixon. These are all league-winning running backs from this past season that are going to be playing between the ages of 28 and 31 next year. The overall position is, especially among the elite producers, but also just the depth in general, is currently very, very old. To go into the depth, just looking at top 20 running backs from this past season, 4 of them were exactly from the 2017 running back draft class, which is kind of insane. That was 8 years ago, and 20% of top 20 running backs were from that class this past year. It was actually the same in 2023, that 4 of those 2017 class running backs were making up the top 20. And again, just for comparison, at any of the years surrounding it, 2015, 2016, 2018, all of those years have not had multiple league winning running backs in any given season over the past 2 years, right? It's really just the 2017 running back class kind of propping up all the depth at the position and, again, all the upside. So this is going to be year 9 for that class, for your Kamaras, for your Mixons, for your McCaffreys. It's just very rare that we get running backs over the age of 28 who put up league winning seasons, right?
Yeah, to specific circumstances to do so too.
Yeah, I should say only 7 running backs since 2017 have had a league winning year at above the age of 28, and 3 of them just happened last year. So it is like, obviously that's a testament to the talent of kind of that generation of running backs, but Father Time is literally undefeated. They're not going to be around forever, right? And where we really get into a problem with that understanding is that the 2024 running back class, last year's class, was a complete and utter disaster and disappointment.
Yeah,
right?
Brutal.
The 2 highest regarded prospects in that class literally had the incumbent veteran in front of them sign a contract extension during the season. That's insane. That I can't think of a year that has ever happened to multiple top 2 running backs in a class.
And the other one blew his leg out again. Like, yes, contract signed, leg blown out again. Like, quite literally the worst run out you could possibly have.
Yeah, no, and it goes even deeper. Marshawn Lloyd got appendicitis that kept him from getting on the field. Blake Corum broke his arm in the final meaningless Week 18 game. You can just go down the list. Like, you get to like Ray Davis, and you're like, oh man, okay, yes, Ray Davis had kind of a role on offense in his first season. He's behind James Cook and probably never getting past him. And same with Jalen Wright. You're like, yeah,
25.
Jalen Wright looks good in this class because he like made it through the season with somewhat of a role on offense that is likely never going to grow into anything. Like, that's how bad it gets very quickly. The only kind of plausible like year 2 breakout candidates from this class are Bucky Irving, obviously, if you look at his Dynasty ADP, that's clearly a consensus opinion. And Tyrone Tracy is a potential year 2 breakout candidate. It's kind of just them. There is not any additional depth or any like additional elite talent coming out of this 24 class. We assume that the 2017 class is going to fade, maybe all at once, maybe gradually. With that combination of things, there's a lot of burden that this 2025 running back class is going to have to shoulder if the talent pool around the league isn't just going to completely crumble. Now, I think they could be up to the task. I was tweeting about this earlier today. Yes, Genty is an elite prospect. I think the consensus is kind of that after Genty, there's very strong depth in this running back class. There's a lot of guys who could go on day 2. But nothing really, certainly nothing compared to the 2017 class. I've seen a comparison I kind of liked was the 2020 class, or at least what we thought of them heading into their draft season. Maybe not so much how the 2020 class actually played out, where we had kind of all these 2nd round level guys with our Jonathan Taylors or Cam Akers or J.K. Dobbins. Who else was from that class that crashed and burned? Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Yeah, Antonio Gibson was there. Okay, yep. Yeah, so I think that's like a fair compare, ignoring the outcome, the unfortunate outcome for a lot of those guys, just how we viewed them as prospects. I think that's a decent way to think of this 2025 class, just obviously with Genty towering over everybody. But given that that's the case, I'm also not sure that these guys are going to go to landing spots that they need to in order to really like bolster the fantasy production of the position as a whole, right? We talk about this with Jacob on the show all the time. He kind of has this theory that there are teams in the NFL that really value running backs that will happily draft a running back on day 2 every single year, pretty much. And there are teams in the NFL nowadays that don't value the running back position really at all. They will only ever take shots in day 3. It feels like every year we're like, okay, who are the Bengals going to draft at running back? Like in round 1 or in round 2, let's do this. And lately it's been the Cowboys, and we're still doing this with the Cowboys. Like, who are they going to take? Who's going to be the chosen running back? And most years, a running back doesn't go to like the chosen landing spot until day 3, because more often than not, the chosen landing spot, that's usually a good offense that doesn't have an incumbent back. Guess what? Those teams usually don't value running backs. Those are 2 very good indicators of a team that doesn't value the running back position. 1, they have a really good offense. They have a forward-thinking organization. And 2, they don't currently have a clear lead guy. If both those things are true, decent chance that they aren't really prioritizing the position that much. So this is just things that are kind of swirling around my head right now as we transition from 2024 to 2025 that I'm concerned about. As amazing of a year as we just had at the running back position for fantasy, I do think it can stop just as quickly, just with how the ages of these talents have kind of lined up. And if everything kind of falls apart at once, combined with a quick reversal of the injury fortunes that we had at the running back position last year as well, we could be the wide receiver boys could be eating good is how I'll put it. But yeah, I kind of go more into this theory in my key takeaways article that's going to be out shortly after the Super Bowl. So definitely make sure you go check that out on FantasyPoints.com after the Super Bowl and just see my extended thoughts on the running back position and on kind of where every position in the NFL is heading for fantasy right now.
I'll say that Toronto Dave said that if the running backs fall in the draft, it's going to be sad. I'm still going to draft them. This is the class to hammer running backs in those second and third rounds. Like, this is one of those years. We saw Tyrone Tracy and Bucky, guys that were third and sometimes fourth round picks that I celebrated, by the way, the night of the draft. Someone made fun of me for it in the YouTube comments. Don't think I'm not bringing that comment and that screenshot to the draft this year when we do the live draft coverage. Believe that. But this is just a draft where I'm hammering these running backs in the second and third round. Look, we're talking about, I'll put it to you this way, Ryan, Buck. We're talking about not knowing if this wide receiver class is good for receivers in the first round. And now you're asking me to make that bet in the second round too? I'm just drafting running backs. I'm going to draft running backs. I'm going to draft a lot of running backs in the second and third round. Buck is going to be acquiring a ton of second round picks somehow, some way to be able to draft these fat ass running backs in the second round. That can help kind of reset your dynasty roster if you are short at the position. Need some things to go your way. Opportunity and draft capital, etc. But this is a year to do it. I like that. I like that call. I like that take a lot. Buck?
Yeah, I think you hit on most of it. I will say I'm pretty disappointed that Kaytron Allen, nicknamed Fat Man, is not in this class. It would make me happy. He also is a good prospect, him and Nick Singleton. But you talk about teams valuing running backs. David Gettleman's just licking his chops, ready to want to be a GM again so he can, he wants to pick a first-round running back so bad. He sees all the running backs. But I'll say at one point, though, it becomes a numbers game, though. We talk about all these names at the running back, like in this class. Like I even see like Lance Zierlein, other people. They have like 17 names. And at some point, it just becomes a numbers game. 5, 6 of those dudes are going to fall because there's just not enough spots. There's not enough jobs. realistically. And outside of the top, like you said, Genty, and then, it seems like Hampton and the Ohio State guys are legitimately sought after. Like they should be second round picks. Maybe Henderson falls in the first. Those other guys, even if they're handcuffs, I mean, we want that. We want to draft second round handcuffs, third round handcuffs. But yeah, I think they're really at the end of the day, there's just like too many names. And we do this thing, I think we do it in the draft with any position. It's like we start saying a running back, or not a running back, a class in general is so good because we know names. It's like, oh, like that's the game. Like you'll see like people do mock drafts on Twitter and be like, how did I do? It's just like 6 names that people know. So they think it's a good draft thing. We do that a lot because there's a lot of like known guys of the class. But yeah, I think I agree with most of it. I think at the end of the day though, there's just going to be a couple of dudes that do fall and that, end up day 3 or are just buried somewhere, end up with really bad landing spots because I mean, the landscape at running back isn't that awful right now. Like you said, a lot of the aging guys, but the one thing they have working in their favor is the running back free agency class is really bad. So I think that's like probably their best thing, that there's not going to be a lot of competition at that. So teams might be more willing to spend a little more draft capital on running back because they're not going to be able to get one in free agency this year like they could have last year.
Yeah, I think those are great points. I will say after all this draft talk for the last hour, nothing that has been said today has changed my initial stance on the whole thing. I'm trading my late first round picks for as many stud players as I can. I'm paying my 5 through 12 plus whatever I have to go and get Brian Thomas Jr. I'm doing it to do whatever I can to go get AJ Brown, who's a little bit discounted right now. I would rather have JSN, Lad McConkey. Hell, I would take a shot on Marv. T. Higgins.
How many late firsts are you talking? How are you getting these players at late first? The late first going like the 7th round of startups right now.
Yeah, but if you search up pick values on trade consolidators, that's what I'm doing. And I know not in my league, Buck over here, but there's a ton of leagues where those trades are getting done regular basis. And you bet your ass I'm trying.
This is what I'd say on this topic. You are almost always best off just waiting until the pick is on the clock or about to be on the clock before trading
100%
player. I agree. I don't think that you're going to be able to send like your late first right now for a Lad McConkey or anything in even that universe. But crazy deals like that do happen on the clock when people get the FOMO, fall in love with the guy that they really want, that they want to get up the board for. That does happen in real dynasty leagues. I love doing the not in my league thing. That is absolutely something that happens in most dynasty leagues, is people overpaying to acquire a pick during the rookie draft. That you can lock that one in pretty much every year.
Some of these guys just like a player. I love this rookie. I really love this prospect, or insert multiple rationales, right?
I don't know that it's like ration. Yeah, I don't know that it's rational or that there's much rationale to it. I think a lot of dynasty managers that think, especially if you only play in 1 or 2 leagues, I think you think of your team as like your special thing that you have to take care of and that you're like going for the ship with this year. And you will sit there and look at where a guy is on the board, where they're going in mock drafts, and kind of start talking yourself into a guy like with your 110 pick, even a month out from the draft or 2 months out from the draft, like we are now. And when that happens, when people get attached to that one player, whoever it is, that is how those moves happen when it's on the clock. And they're like, oh man, I have to trade up to even get that player now that I thought I was just going to get. Maybe he got a really good landing spot and he's moving up boards now. This was my plan for my team that it's my baby, my team. So I think that's more of the mindset very often. And you should absolutely be taking advantage of that as a dynasty owner. If you're the one holding that pick on the clock, yeah, give me, please overpay me for all of my first round picks this year. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But just wait. Please wait until the rookie draft before you try to do that.
I think you could put some feelers out now. I mean, there are just some veterans that are just getting no love as well. Like some guys are definitely slipping. Like Tua's a tough one to really not Tua. I'm sorry, Tyreek is a tough one because he was just so out of his normal this year and then contract stuff. But 112 in this class are like potentially 2 to 3 years of Tyreek. I don't know. It's worth checking in on, in my opinion.
What about 112 or Devontae Adams?
Adams is probably too much. Adams is probably too far. It depends, though. I'll tell you this. It depends if he goes where Rodgers goes. Because if he goes,
is that good? I don't even know if that's
he's getting
good
14. Anymore. You did not have Devontae Adams down the stretch? I imagine. I did, and it was us.
But
he was awesome.
I don't know. I don't know if Aaron Rodgers is good for any receiver anymore. Or for
it
any
was.
offense.
He's good for Devontae Adams.
Okay, he's the best case scenario for Devontae Adams. Like that dude, he's getting 20 targets a game.
They were doing flea flicker plays to each other. Like they were playing catch in the backfield with each other. Are you kidding?
Yeah. Advanced apologies to any fan base that is somehow saddled with Aaron Rodgers and Devontae.
Like Aaron Rodgers sucks.
I'm pouring one out for you right now.
I agree, but it's great for Devontae Adams and his 33-year soon. What's his age? Buck? When's his birthday?
He's 40. Devontae Adams or Aaron Rodgers? Aaron Rodgers 40. Devontae Adams is 32. I know his birthday. It's New Year's Eve or Christmas Eve. It's Christmas Eve. You can look that up. His birthday's on Christmas Eve. I know that one. You can look that one up. Christmas Eve.
Siri, when is Devontae Adams' birthday?
Devontae Adams was born December 24th, 1992, and he's 32 years old.
Okay, so I'm learning, Buck. When I have to rewrite all my age curve studies and like update my database and everything, and I have to get in all these birthdays, I am not using Google for 20 minutes. I'm just going to call you, and you're going to tell me every single birthday, and they're going to do it directly into my spreadsheet, and I'll do it in 1/4 of the time, and it'll be amazing. I'm excited.
I got you.
Oh, man. Find a new way to work in a wide receiver's birthday every week. Oh my God! Shout out Siri, shout out. Guest on the pod. Oh my God, fantastic! I think to put a bow on it, this class the NFL needs an injection of youth at the running back position, and I think it's coming this year. So I like it. Again, I don't like when a class is like its strength is the position that's the most fragile. That's not a good indicator. But I mean, especially this Ohio, 3 Ohio State players in fantasy could all be first-round picks in rookie drafts after April. That's kind of insane. But they do kind of all deserve it. Quick break, come back. We're going to finish this thing out. Not going to want to miss it. Okay, it's time to talk mock drafts. And we'll keep it short because we're at an hour 9. This is just a fun little side bit for today. But our mock drafts ass or pass. You see, I hate them. I hate mock drafts. For the same reason that Buck is shaking his head talking about the Giants are drafting a quarterback no matter what. It's the worst kept secret. However you feel about Genty to the Jet, etc. It's that type of stuff. To me, there's no basis to it. It's just, if there's anything that I can't stand, it is pure projection and guesstimating. I can't, because it's hard to think objectively and not just taking that person, that player, and just putting him into the spot that you love the most. It's hard to be objective, and I need objective thinking. I think objectively. It goes into all of my. I don't have strong player takes. I don't have strong team takes. There's no favoritism. I like to think that I'm as objective as there is in this business. I've called myself the paragon of objectivity for a reason, for years, to the point where it's been made fun of on this program. And mock drafts leave you almost no room for objective thinking. It is just great fit, great. I don't like mock drafts. I don't like going on Twitter and seeing everyone posting 100 mock drafts that quite obviously make no sense. Because I'm telling you now, putting stock into a mock draft that came out today or will come out tomorrow is going to mean jack shit in April. It will mean nothing. Nothing. There's a reason these things are never accurate. Daniel Jeremiah's that he does the night before the draft isn't even accurate. He's the closest because he's the last one people care about. It's clearly what Howie Roseman's drafting off of every year. This is why we all think his drafts are phenomenal.
Based Howie.
That's what he does. I mean, look at the, that's been a running joke for a while. I can't do it. I can't do it. So NFL mock drafts, I have no use for. I will say I used to say I have no use for rookie mock drafts. I still have no use for startup mock drafts. Don't ask me. I'm not joining it. Shout out the people that send me those DMs and request. I love you. You're phenomenal people. I'm happy you listen to the show. I know you're listening right now. Never send me that invite again.
I almost convinced you to do a startup mock a week ago. I can't. You sounded like you were gonna maybe go for that idea last week. I will
startup mock. I'll do it for the show.
Okay.
For show content, I've done that because the people like it. If you're asking me to do a mock draft startup because you want to see where the players land for your draft coming up, I'm going to block you. Okay? We have programs for that. But I will say, though, I did really enjoy that rookie mock draft. I really enjoyed seeing how it went. So we're going to do more of those for the brand. But yes, startup mock drafts miss me. I'll do it for the YouTube channel, the podcast. They're fun to talk about. It's fun to mix it up with you guys to see where we agree or disagree. But sitting in a draft room with 11 people just making YOLO picks because there's no money and bread on the line. No disrespect, but there's a reason I don't use DLF ADP. There's a reason, because it's mock drafts. There's no money on the line. You don't know shit. Oh, you're real brave taking, oh my God, can you believe Jim from accounting took the insert Bo Nix in the first? I can. He's not doing that when there's $100 buy-in on the line. They're useless. It's useless. Useless. Pass it over. I'll side rant aside. Clearly had that one. I didn't know that would be such a trigger for me, but it was. So it's therapeutic here now. But I'll go to Ryan. How do you feel about the three methods of mock drafting?
Yeah, I'll actually make this really quick for you. NFL mock drafts in February, I don't care about at all, especially not individual ones. Like I think I would place, if I'm ranking like Twitter discourses that I hate the most, I would say number one that I hate the most is like the NFL ref conspiracy stuff is like bottom of the barrel right now. I would put tweet out a screenshot from an individual mock draft that pissed you off, like just slightly above that. And we all talk about like that one landing spot or whatever it is, or how this one mock draft guy is an idiot. I really don't care. It's content that these people do for their jobs. I think a lot of the NFL insiders don't particularly enjoy doing them. It's just kind of a weird thing that we all do and pay attention to this time of year for whatever reason. I will say the one useful thing that I get out of NFL mock drafts is I really like going on the NFL mock draft database. They just kind of collect all of the picks from mock drafts around the internet, build like these consensus big boards. And I just like using that as like a very rough proxy for what type of draft capital is this player expected to get. Like I can load it up right now and see, okay, like Matthew Golden is looking like a consensus late first round pick, and that can kind of be my expectation. Or Trey Harris looking like a fringe, like top 50 pick right now. But yeah, obviously we don't know. A million things can always change with these players over the next couple months. So it's just a really big shrug of the shoulders for me. I just don't care very much about mocks in general.
I think that's totally fair, Buck.
Yeah, for NFL mock drafts, I'll say like I don't care as far as using it for like real information. I think they're fun to look at. The one thing I use it for is seeing what, like, if there's a consensus player like Matthew Golden, for example, like keep seeing him in all these first round mocks, and it's like, all right, maybe that's a name I should care about a little more and should check out something like that. But we do got to remember, like, first of all, we got to remember that all these people are competing in a contest. So you'll see like a lot of the stuff similar is because they're competing like on the grind the mocks thing. Like they're competing like for an accuracy contest. They're not like, the only one that I care about is Daniel Jeremiah, because his actually usually has like actual intel involved. Like he's getting sources when he has picks, especially not this early, but later. Other dudes are just like trying to do it for accuracy. So I don't necessarily care about
That's it. Not to cut you off. That's the same thing with like Fantasy Pros rankings during the season. By the way, guys, everybody's gaming them to try to win the contest. That's a little industry secret that I'll let out here in February.
Yeah, exactly. So it's not, so you'll see a lot of the stuff being the same. It doesn't actually hold any merit. I mean, we saw people mocking Will Levis top 5 all the way up until the draft. And then the Lance Sterling mock the day before the draft, he was first overall, because we had that Reddit thing where it's like, oh, he packed his bags. Carolina told him. I remember that whole thing. And then his betting odds went all the way up to being the first pick. And then he doesn't even go in the first round. But yeah, so I don't care about it in that instance, but it's fun. It's fun to look at. It's cool. It's something to look at now. They start to, I think, like matter more past the combine, and you got to know who you're looking at too. I mean, some you got to stay in like pretty much Daniel Jeremiah. That's the one guy you should probably care about if you want to care about a mock draft.
Yeah, there are a couple industry ones that I don't mind right around the draft time. I mean, they're fun to look at, but holding any weight, no. And someone said, Paragon, wasn't that a character in Lord of the Rings? No, that would be Aragorn, son of Arathorn. Thank you very much.
You're getting trolled, Thomas. He doesn't actually think that.
I know, but I had to flex the fact that I know the name of Aragorn's dad. So shout out to me. If you don't flex your nerdism, Ryan, then what's the point in having it? Okay, if I can't look at my Lord of the Rings books back there, or my swords on the wall. I have both of his. One there. I have one over here that you can't see. What is the point, Ryan, if I can't flex it?
We're on a Dynasty fantasy football podcast in early February.
Don't care.
That's not flexing enough.
This is the type of
nerdism for you. That I think that's a pretty big nerd flex.
There is a different level of nerdism if you want to start bringing out my Lord of the Rings nerdism. Okay, you think fantasy football runs deep? I got you for days on this shit. Hold on. Do you know what these are, Ryan? Maybe you won't totally be able to see. Do you know what these are for?
I can't really see what
these are. Custom made caricatures for Dungeons and Dragons. All right, okay. These are my like. It runs deep. Don't test that. You don't want that. You don't want that smoke.
I'm just glad I got you to say nerdism twice. That's pretty funny.
Hey, that's what it is.
It's not a word.
That's how I know you're not a deep enough nerd. That's how I know.
Nerdism, it's nerdiness would be the word. I don't know why I said nerdism.
You're the type of person. You're the type of person that would correct someone on the spelling of pwned. That's what you're reflecting. That's the energy you're giving off. Right? Actually, it would be owned, and that would be OW. Yeah, we know, narc. We know that you're the
type of person that would correct someone on how to pronounce basic words like rum.
Well, because everyone on the internet, Ryan, thinks you're crazy for how you say rum. Jack Sparrow, relax. Everyone on our comments, someone even said it. There's actually someone made a rum comment.
Yeah, that was why I said that.
In the comment
That was
section
why I thought of it.
earlier. Okay, go back and read those
Shout out
comments.
Toronto Dave.
TD gets it. Rum. Captain Jack over here. All right, guys, that's going to do the show. You're right. It's a Dynasty show in February. We're an hour and 20 in. Now we're talking about accusations of whatever you said, nerding.
I'm going to go pour myself some rum. Let's get out of here.
Yeah, that's right. You're going to go pour yourself some rum in the rum. Jesus. All right, we got to get out of here. For Buck, for Ryan, for myself, Tommy T, thanks for watching. Happy rookie mock drafting, everybody. And please, again, stop sending me invites for Dynasty Startup mocks. Respectfully. I love you. Bye-bye.
What?
Why are you shaking your head? You're welcome.